Welcome to Everything Explained. I'm your host, and today we're diving into a question that's ancient and surprisingly timely. Why do myths exist in every culture? You'll find traces of them in cave paintings, in bedtime tales, in the oldest epics, and in the movies and games that shape our sensibilities today. Myths aren't just old stories, they're tools people use to navigate meaning, danger, and possibility. They help explain the world, yes, but they also organize life inside a community. So why do myths exist across the globe? Here's a clear way to think about it. First, myths answer big questions about reality. Where did we come from? Why do people die? Why do seasons change, or storms rage, or sickness spread? Myths offer stories that give plausible, emotionally satisfying answers, even when the facts are unknown. The Greek tales of the creation gods explain order and chaos side by side. The Epic of Gilgamesh wrestles with mortality. The Hindu stories describe cycles of creation and destruction. There are flood myths from Mesopotamia to the Americas, each suggesting that disasters are not random acts, but part of a moral or cosmic balance. In some regions, the Dreamtime stories of Aboriginal cultures tie land, law, and people into a single living picture. In this way, a myth is like a map of what the unknown feels like, translated into a narrative we can remember, share, and test against experience. Second, myths act as social glue. They give a shared language, shared heroes tests, and shared rituals. When a culture gathers for a festival or marks a rite of passage, it's not just ceremony, it's a performance of belonging. The stories people tell around the fire or in schools become the social memory that tells us who we are and what we owe one another. The trickster figures, Anansi in West Africa, Coyote in many Native American traditions, Loki in Norse myth, show how cleverness, risk, and rules can shape a community's values. They entertain, yes, but they also model the kinds of cooperation and creativity a group needs to survive a shared environment. Third, myths teach moral order. They lay out norms through stories of consequences, what happens when pride outpaces wisdom, or when generosity is rewarded, or when deceit backfires. You can hear this in the way many myths place a hero's success beside a test of character. The old tales aren't just about spectacular feats, they're schoolrooms for behavior. That doesn't mean myths are cold or legalistic. They're often vivid and human, using emotion to help memory and judgment stick. In many cultures, the same story carries multiple layers of meaning. A boy or girl may learn courage on the surface, and a deeper rule about humility when they hear it again in adulthood. Fourth, myths mirror how our brains work. We're pattern-seeking animals who love stories with beginning, middle, and end. Myths provide archetypes, the trickster, the wise old mentor, the fearless warrior, templates our minds compare new experiences against. They encode information in a way that's easier to remember than dispassionate lists of facts. That's why people remember a myth's moral long after they forget a statistic. And myths often explain agency, why unseen forces seem to shape events, by giving those forces personality and intention. Fifth, myths carry knowledge and practice across generations. They embed practical wisdom, how to treat guests, how to navigate a treacherous sea, when to sow and harvest, how to honor ancestors. In many cases, the stories do more than tell you what to do. They dramatize why it matters, linking daily labor to long-term well-being. Even when a culture changes, the old stories adapt rather than disappear, peppering science, politics, and art with familiar frames. Sixth, myths endure because they adapt and endure. Modern myths, new heroes, space odysseys, or computer-age fables, still serve the same purposes. They shape identity, give people something larger than themselves to aim for, and offer a way to talk about fears and ideals. Science can explain mechanisms, but it often needs a narrative to connect those explanations to values and choices. That's why myths persist in education, media, religion, and everyday speech, even as societies adopt new understandings. So why do myths exist in every culture? Because they meet essential human needs: to explain the inexplicable, to bind people together, to teach right from wrong, to fit our minds' love of stories, and to pass on practical wisdom from one generation to the next. They are not relics of the past, but living tools that keep shaping how we think, act, and dream. If you take away one idea from today, let it be this: myths are the oldest, most durable software for human society, constantly updated by each new culture that inherits them. They're not simply old tales told aloud. They are the shared software that runs behind our rituals, games, laws, and even our science fiction, quietly guiding how we grow as communities. Remember this: myths are living maps guiding us through uncertainty. Listen, question, and let their stories help us become better neighbors to one another.